Welcome back. You're still watching the midweek edition of Business Morning on Channels Television, and we're looking at budget planning debate. Well, the process has been debated or was debated for 2 days in Abuja. The Senate Committee on National Planning and Poverty Alleviation as well as Finance called together experts, from financial experts, the Ministry of Finance, and of course the National Planning Commission, to debate how national planning and budgeting process can be improved in the country. Well, the Minister of Finance, I beg your pardon, Okonjo-Iweala, says the problem of the economy is not the current budgeting system, but volatility in terms of the country's revenue. She's arguing that the Office of the Federation should remain under the Ministry of Finance, and I've been speaking with an economist, Kola Ogunleye, who seems to share the sentiment with the minister, but other experts say differently. Now, Kola, just before we went on break, we were talking about how the roles and the functions of the budget office should be delineated, and you said for the budget office is supposed to be robust and independent, which might be where we should be toeing the line. Now, the Federal Character Commission is empowered by the 1999 Constitution to ensure equitable distribution of amenities across the states in terms of budgeting. Now, according to it, they also were represented at that hearing, the two-day hearing by the Senate Committee on budget planning and process, but it says that it has been excluded from the process of budgeting, and it's now also of the opinion that the budget office of the Federation should be moved to the either to the Federal Characters Commission or to the MPC, which has been.
Anyway, I want to believe that the suggestion to move the budget office to the Federal Character Commission is not even
or maybe to make them more participatory.
We are looking at a situation of a government, the executive branch now, and what all this suggests to me is that there's no proper coordination. I mean, if you have a situation where the Federal Character Commission, the process of formulating the budget is a very, very clear process. That's what they call the supply procedure in government. And what you do is that you pass circulars around to all ministries, departments, and agencies that they should supply their inputs into the budget based on certain prevalent set criteria. I would be surprised if an important institution such as the Federal Character Commission is not consulted. And what we are saying is that there is no single agency of government that is not involved in budget process. And that is why you find out that in what is called budget defense, different ministries are called upon to come and defend their budget. The budget itself, the finance ministry, the budget office, these are clearing houses. Most of these decisions, they just give them criteria and they tell them, okay, where are you in respect of what you've been doing? What are the important things? Like she was saying, the NY was saying the other time, that, okay, fine, what are your priorities? How far have you gone? Every single department of government has an input. When the Federal Character Commission says it is not involved in the budget process, I want to believe that maybe what it is saying is that it is not allowed to specify where project will be located. Don't forget that it's a 2 or 3 step process. In each of the ministry, they have capital projects. They also have capital budgets. And inside this capital budget, maybe if there is an ongoing road, Benin or a road, for instance, that has been on before, even if the Federal Character Commission wants another road somewhere, you also look at the funding. I don't want to use the word complex, but it's a process that is not as straightforward as that. So, if the involvement of the Federal Character Commission is to ensure equitable distribution of projects, I think what the Federal Character Commission should come up with at the annual budget cycle is a set of criteria that will determine the locational aspects of this project based on what has been done before. For example, a situation where some regions in the country are complaining that their regions are not benefiting from federal budgets or federal projects. That will be solved if the Federal Character Commission has already provided the necessary, because what they should give to the budget process is information, data that will be used. I mean, I don't know the level of involvement that can happen other than that. that we have a situation where there's a budget cycle in session. Okay, we have passed out circulars. We call it circularization. People are bringing in what they want to do. Then it will be subject to some of the criteria that the Federal Character Commission, because of its own position and its functions, have been able to provide for us. So all these, for example, I don't expect not to see a representative of the Federal Character Commission, a representative of the revenue collection agencies, FRS. These are all the people that are involved in the budget. And the Minister of Finance just served as a kind of clearinghouse, coordinating these activities and being the face of the government in terms of budget.
Well, Kola, there's also this argument that there should be a synergy in the planning process, probably between the private sector and the government. Should this option be explored?
Even in this whole budget process, I expect that it is not a question of when you are presenting the budget, you now invite the private sector. They should also be involved in a way, because if you say that your government is pro-growth in terms of private sector development, because that's the engine of economic growth, you know, and then most of the jobs are going to be created by them. Don't forget that the banking sector, the manufacturing sector, they must have inputs into the budgeting process. It's not a question of synergy now. It's a question of information provision that can assist those who are doing budget to come up with more robust, reliable, functional budgets, implementable budgets. Don't also forget that because of the position of the ministry, they have information. So if you bring in an idea or a data, they will tell you this is what can happen. She talks also, let's address that quickly. The volatility in the oil sector is the most important factor that affects Nigerian budgeting system, because this is a monoproduct economy, and we have a situation where that single product accounts for over 80% of the budget. So whatever happens to that will affect what happens. There are also issues of which we have addressed in the past, the cost of running government, which means that recurrent expenditure, and they have been working on that. They've been rebalancing the budget process. They have been doing what is called fiscal consolidation, you know, trying to make sure that I think the budgeting process in Nigeria have improved tremendously. There's a lot more of transparency and accountability now in the budgeting process. I think when we have institutions that have issues with the budgeting process now, it's better for them to come in by way of proper coordination, being part of the process and all of that. I don't think that's our problem now. I see our problem as budget implementation.
Exactly. I was just going to talk about it. There seems to be an impasse between the executive and the legislature, and the executive believes the legislature does not have the power to decide what should or should not be included in the budget. How can this be rectified?
No. I think democracy is growing. But if we are going to take our cue from advanced democracies in the world, the ownership, really, the way the Constitution envisages it in a democratic process, the budget itself, in some kind of democracies like parliamentary democracy, the budget is practically owned by the legislature. Okay? But in the presidential system, by the way it is, you are supposed to present that budget. They are not supposed to, if you present a budget for so much and all that, the executive the legislature has a salient responsibility to review the budget, to say, no, we don't want this one, we don't think it will serve us well here, because they represent the people. And if the budget is supposed to be the budget of the people and not budget of technocrats, then the representatives of the people must have an input in it, but they must not hamstrung the budget process. You know, the Constitution recognizes that they must, review it, look at it, pass judgment on it, carry out oversight responsibility on it, but they must not hamstrung the budget process. They must not engage in what is called undue legislative meddlesomeness. That is very, very important. Because the truth of the matter is that everything is politicized in Nigeria. The budget is a serious business. Each of those legislators is supposed to have some kind of technical assistant who will help them look at it, economists, accountants, financial analysts, who will look at it from the point of view of what he wants to do. And he say, okay, fine, this is my committee. This is what we are looking at. So they need a whole lot of technical expertise to do a serious job on the budget. But it must not be unduly politicized. because you have to look at the macroeconomic objectives that the budget strives to achieve in terms of job creation, in terms of spreading development, in terms of infrastructure. So, because there are some basic underpinnings of the budget, and that's what they call the underlying assumptions of the budget. For example, look at the price of oil. We were arguing about that for a long time, but look at what has happened to the price of oil. You must do what is called economic forecasting properly, so that you know that, look, as we have oil in the United States that is very cheap now, they call it shale oil, it may affect the pricing of our oil.
It's not it may, it will affect the pricing of our oil.
The way it is going now, if we are not careful, even the national plan that we budgeted, there is a benchmark that we anchored it upon. Is it still realistic? There's an inflation target that we have. Is it still realistic? So that continuous review of national plan to make it accord with reality is a key responsibility of the National Planning Commission. That one can even take them a lot of time. Forecasting, trying to find out what is happening, doing what is called scenario planning analysis all the time.
So how can we override poor budget implementation so that Nigerians can get the best of annual budget
I
as
think
they come?
The basic thing, the key criterion for measuring how good a budget is still how it affects people's development. And I was thinking that should be the focus of the National Assembly. How can we make budget more people-oriented? How can our budget that produce growth lead to what is called inclusive growth? How can everybody feel the impact of the budget? How do we ensure that the budget is not seen as an annual ritual with no significant relationship with the people? Now, so those are key questions that we need to answer. And in answering those questions, what we need to do is to say, okay, our infrastructure programs, are they going to lead to job creation? Who are we giving the jobs to? If we give a job to a guy who comes in from a place where they are not employing Nigerians, how do that? Because if you spend trillions of naira every year, we still have unemployment. We still have a situation where most of our facilities are not running. Those are the things that should engage the thinking of people at the National Assembly. They should ruminate over it seriously and ensure that when they do the budget, because the process of doing the budget is one aspect, then the budget implementation, in terms of what are the ministries doing, do they have the capacity to carry out that?
Because we see very clear indices that Nigeria's economy is doing very well, but it's not translating to the common man who complains that they're not getting the best out of this policy.
So what are we going to do now? Fiscal policies are contained. The budget, the federal government carries out its budget through, carries out its fiscal policies through the budget process. That's where they indicate where they want to spend money, what kind of revenue they are looking at. So those fiscal policies, I must submit at this point that they have a long time lag for them to begin to have what I call results in the policy. You know, if you start a project now, they will release money, contractor will be mobilized, and all that. So there's a whole lot of cycle again after the budget has been passed for you to get money, for contractors to be mobilized. So they don't have impact, and that's why a lot of people are saying the monetary policy people should do more in terms of making sure that things work out. Of course, both of them have to be synergized. Both the monetary policy regime that we have and the fiscal policy stance, of the government should be. Again, whatever happens, the fiscal decisions at subnational levels also have a lot to do with it. That is, what are the states budgeting to do? Are they keening into this vision? Everybody is talking about national planning and budget office now. What about the states? What is their role in Vision 2020? How can they help to achieve? Are they doing their thing, the way they like it? So those are some of the issues that we also need to look at, because the national budget at the federal level is one aspect, but there are 37 other budgets, including Abuja, that are coming out of Nigeria. The totality of all those budgets, how do they affect the welfare of our people?
food for thought. Thank you so much, Kola, for speaking with us on this
Yeah.
morning. Well, I've been speaking to an economist, Kola Ogunleye, and we've been looking at Nigeria's planning and budgeting system. Well, experts have been arguing that the process is flawed and that the Budget Office should be under the Ministry of National Planning and not the Ministry of Finance.